A huge wide receiver trade in the NFL sparked some Baltimore Ravens rumblings, and it's really interesting.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day. We're here for you 5 days a week plus more with daily Ravens coverage and twice per day in the mornings at 6 a.m. Eastern time and in the evenings at 6 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday. So appreciate everybody, and thank you to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. Here today on today's show, we're going to be diving into a huge NFL trade in the wide receiver department, sparking some Ravens rumblings on the position. So we'll talk about that. Then in the second part of the show, a new pass rushing option emerged for the Ravens, a guy that I don't think a lot of people expected to hit free agency, actually hitting the market. So for us to dive into it today, let's start off with the deal. DJ Moore gets traded from the Bears to the Bills. So some of the Ravens competition getting some added weapons for their quarterback. It was DJ Moore in a 5th rounder for a 2nd rounder, which steep price to pay. Would I have done that deal if I were the Ravens? Probably not. I think that DJ Moore is a good player, and obviously there is the Maryland connection, but for a 2nd, I wouldn't. And again, like the Ravens track record in the 2nd over the course of the last decade plus or whatever, how far you want to go back, hasn't been particularly stellar, but even still, 2nds are valuable, and while I think DJ Moore is a valuable player, I'm not mad at the Ravens for not making this move, but that kind of has sparked some different rumblings. Obviously, the big-time target is A.J. Brown, and there have been rumblings on the Ravens and the Patriots with him, and that's something we're going to get to a lot more on tomorrow's episode as things continue to come in with that. But there now have been rumblings about, hey, the Ravens, and hey, the Patriots, and Sam Njoku actually, he said, hey, maybe the Ravens are sniffing around A.J. Brown. Who knows? So that's going to be a really intriguing conversation point to where we know A.J. Brown's contract is something you have to figure out. We know that there's some stuff with him, and will he be happy in Baltimore? He certainly didn't seem happy in Philly over the course of the last year or however far you want to go back. So, and then what's the compensation, right? I'm not trading a 1st for A.J. Brown. I would trade a 2nd for A.J. Brown, though. I think that would be a deal that a lot of people would be okay with, myself included. Probably not everybody, but I'd be okay with it. But also there have been now rumblings, all right, hey, Stephon Diggs, he's a free agent now. He's been listed by a couple of websites as a potential option for the Ravens, or the Ravens are a top landing spot for him. There were rumblings about Tyreek Hill when he first got released. It just feels like the wide receiver position is one, because look, everybody's focused on the trenches now in Baltimore, and rightfully so. The offensive line and the pass rush, those are your 2 biggest needs. But I do think that there needs to be some level of an upgrade at the wide receiver spot, and whether, that is just bringing back DeAndre Hopkins and then drafting a 1st-round wide receiver and then still having Tez and obviously Zay Flowers and Rashod Bateman. You could do that. Is that trading away Rashod Bateman? Obviously, the reports are that the Ravens seem inclined to give him a shot in this Declan Doyle offense. But trading for a guy like A.J. Brown and then having your top 3 guys be Flowers, Bateman, and then whether it's Brown, Diggs, Hill, I know there have been like the Marquise Brown connections that a lot of people are making. Feels like for the Ravens, that's a position they're going to be looking at. I hope they do look at it, but not prioritize it over other options. And, I saw some people talking about, well, A.J. Brown, what about Max Crosby? And there have been a lot of rumblings that teams are now, and depending on, how things go, teams are now looking at 2 1st-rounders for Max Crosby, which, again, if you're thinking Max Crosby, great pass rusher, but 2 1st-rounders, or A.J. Brown, potentially 2nd-rounder for a great wide receiver who might just need to change the scenery. I mean, to me, Crosby fits a need, but if you can get Brown and then a pass rusher, or one of those lesser tier wide receivers, and you spend more money on a pass rusher and offensive line, it's just, there are so many different combinations. And I've said this, right? There are so many combinations that the Ravens can put together this offseason and have it be a successful offseason. Like, they don't need to trade for Max Crosby. They don't need to trade for A.J. Brown, but some combination of like a big time move or 2. You get a couple of other smaller, maybe medium moves, guys who can start for you, And then obviously filling out around the margins, there are a lot of added possibilities into what that could actually look like for the Ravens, whether it's you prioritize O-line, then pass rush, or pass rush, then O-line. Where do you factor wide receiver? There are rumblings the Ravens could get a safety. Like, there are all these different paths and possibilities, but I'd be very curious kind of what the pathway would be for the Ravens if they were to trade for a guy like an AJ Brown. And again, I'm going to dive into this a lot more on tomorrow's show because this thing seems to be ever evolving. And that's kind of what I say during this time. It's like I could say something on this show right now, and then by the time you watch it, and maybe it's like right as it uploads or an hour after it uploads, something could have completely changed. Like, that is how fluid all these situations are at this time. So there's always stuff to talk about and always new things happening. So I think this DJ Moore trade, because again, a lot of people saw it and they're like, look at Josh Allen getting more weapons. Look at the Bills going out there and getting more weapons. Well, I think there's a price that you have to look at for each guy and evaluate that price. I would have traded a third for DJ Moore. I would not have traded a second for DJ Moore. That's just my opinion. I would trade a second for AJ Brown. I would not trade a first for AJ Brown. That's just my opinion. But even if it's not a deal like that, I think, and it doesn't even have to be a trade, but like going out there and making a big splash move is something that I think the Ravens need to do. And I talked about this a little bit yesterday as well. You know, the Ravens have operated a certain way for a long time. I think to me now you have to kind of not completely abandon it, but move a little bit away from it. And I think, again, the way that wide receivers are valued now with a Declan Doyle offense and what obviously Sean Payton, Ben Johnson, those guys he's worked with, it's different now in Baltimore, which is why you're hearing, okay, the Ravens are probably going to pick up Zay's fifth-year option. I'm not sure they would have under John Harbaugh with Greg Roman or Todd Monken. These conversations about the Ravens bringing in receivers. I mean, every time a receiver was released, I mean, it's kind of like everyone was kind of joking about the washed options, but even just it was the lower tier washed options, right? And I'm not saying that, I'm talking like Deshaun Jackson, Des Bryant, those type of guys. But then you started to get more evolution in your offense, and then it became veterans who were on the tail end of their careers who weren't necessarily washed, in my opinion. Like, I do not think DeAndre Hopkins is washed at all. I've said that. I want D-Hop back in Baltimore. Odell, he was someone that, they paid too much money to. I think we can all admit that. But he was someone that at least had a very profound impact in the locker room. I mean, again, it was a crazy contract, but Lamar wanted him, and it's what it took to get him to Baltimore. So that's kind of what it was. But now as that reputation has been established, and now as you continue on in this with an offense that I believe is going to just run a lot more heavy wide receiver sets, you can afford to be in these conversations, make moves like this, and not have it be like, why would you trade all this capital? Why would you pay all this money to a wide receiver? Because it makes no sense within the framework of your offense. Now it does. So it makes sense now that the Ravens are either involved in these conversations or they're being linked in these conversations. And I'm really excited to see how it all plays out for them, because this is new. This is almost unprecedented in Baltimore Ravens history. So I'm pumped to see how it goes. Coming up, though, in the second part of the show, we'll talk about a new pass rushing option emerging and someone who's going to now hit the free agent market. So stay tuned. Plenty coming up on the show.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ETHOS.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
This episode is sponsored by Betterhelp. March is a time to celebrate women, especially around International Women's Day, and to recognize just how much they carry at work, in relationships, in families, and in all the unseen roles they step into every single day. It's easy to celebrate that strength, but it's just as important to make space for their emotional well-being And honestly, that goes for all of us. And for me, my mom has been a rock for my entire life. And I think about my mom and how much she cares without always saying so. And it makes me think, how many of us are doing the same thing? The roles we play, the expectations we carry, the pressure we don't always talk about. Therapy can help with all of that, creating balance, setting healthy boundaries, and supporting your overall well-being. With over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 6 million people served worldwide, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, and it works. Fill out a short questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and if it's not the right fit, switch at any time. Your emotional well-being matters. Find support and feel lighter in therapy. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's betterhelp.com/lockedon. Moving along, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this Locked On Ravens PM edition on Thursday. Thanks again for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage and content for you twice per day. Again, in the mornings at 6 a.m. Eastern time and in the evenings at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And that's on top of all the other stuff we give you here on Locked On Ravens, like bonus episodes on the weekends when there are headlines, instant reactions after games and after pieces of big Ravens news. We have watch-alongs during the season during games. We also have the squad show twice a week, myself, Sam Njoku, and former Ravens receiver Kadri Ismail, and then also the Everydayer Club on Locked On Ravens, where you can get add-on content like weekly Q&As, ad-free episodes, access to a Discord server, and a lot more. So if you want to check that out, we're actually now the network is offering a promo code free agency for 1 month of free Everydayer Club right now. So be sure you head over to the Locked On website, the Locked On Ravens page, and take advantage of that. So again, that's code free agency to get a month free of the Everydayer Club right now. But let's talk about a new pass rushing option emerging for the Ravens and for Eric DeCosta, someone who I personally didn't think was going to hit the market, but apparently now he is. Adam Schefter reporting on Thursday, Cameron Jordan, who has spent all 15 years of his NFL career in New Orleans with the Saints, had 10.5 sacks last season. He's not going to have a new deal in place with the Saints by next week, and now will hit free agency for the first time in his NFL career. Jordan will play his 16th NFL season, and according to Adam Schefter, is said to be open to leaving New Orleans. This has never happened. Cam Jordan is incredible, and someone that had a resurgence with those 10.5 sacks last season looked like was his career coming to a close. He only had 2 sacks in 2023, had 4 sacks in 2024. But Jordan is someone that with that resurgent year put himself back on the map. Jordan is extremely decorated. He has made a ton of Pro Bowls, all pros. Like, he is a really good player. But again, just like, is this the solution for the Ravens? He will be 37 in about half a year, a little less than that. I mean, he's 36 right now. He'll turn 37 in just a little bit in July. So he will be 37 by the time the season starts. Is that the guy you want to kind of hitch your wagon to in terms of the pass rush and say, we're going to rely on this guy? Now, I think if it's Cam Jordan and another bigger acquisition, I can get down with that. Jordan, he's a defensive end type of player, someone that can have some flexibility. He's 6'4", 287, so he's a bigger guy. But I think that this would be a cool move for the Ravens if it came with something else. Now, I think if you can use Jordan as like your inside-outside flexible guy, don't have to play him a ton of snaps, you can kind of manage his snaps, and then you also bring in a guy like Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Trey Hendrickson. Like, I think that's great. But if you're big solve for the pass rush is signing Cam Jordan and relying on him at 37 years old to turn around a unit that was abysmal last season, I mean, I think that's probably not the best option. But again, it's an option for them. And the Ravens, with this, they have a couple of free agents, right? Draymond Jones, Kyle Van Noy, obviously David Ajabo, who was on the roster, like he was on the roster last season. So that's another roster spot you have to fill. The Ravens right now with Mike Green and Tavius Robinson on the outside, you have a base there already. And then on the interior, obviously, you're more set there, but there's still the uncertainty with the Nnamdi Madubuike. I mean, honestly, I'd be fine with this as like a Nnamdi insurance policy if he's able to return, and even if he's not. Just like signing a guy like Cam Jordan, keeping him kind of in the fold either way. I think that's kind of a perfect signing where it's like if Nnamdi comes back, you can put Cam Jordan in situationally inside or outside, and it works. If Nnamdi doesn't come back, and I know they played, like, I know it's different in terms of like where they line up and everything, but like, you can still do a lot where like you're not going to put Nnamdi on the edge, but like I think Cam Jordan does have that versatility. So, wouldn't be my move to solve the pass rush issues for the Ravens. He wouldn't be my big acquisition in that regard, but I think there is something to say about what he could bring to the table. Obviously, as a leader, he also has had some glowing things to say about Lamar Jackson. So that also is something to keep in mind where, hey, I mean, that's good in my book. Like, he said some of that stuff. I think it was at the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. So an interesting option. And again, this is what I'm saying. There are a lot of options, a lot of different directions this Ravens team could go. And I know we're here speculating. We're going to get to more of the actualities of stuff once free agency hits and starts on Monday. But for now, you're kind of outlining plans. And I think Cam Jordan can be a plan for you, but he cannot be the plan for you for the Baltimore Ravens at that position. But that's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning into the show on the web. Be sure to like and subscribe button in video form and follow along with subscribe in audio form 4 or 5 days a week, plus more of daily Ravens coverage. Coming up, we will have our regularly scheduled programming tomorrow morning and then Locked On Ravens PM later in the day. Stay tuned, and I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.